Okay, so everybody has genetically weaker and stronger body parts. For me, when I started training, the body parts that came easier were my calves, lats and back were fairly easy. But my weak body parts were pecs and biceps. So I really had to look into what were the most efficient exercises for me, what worked, and I found it depends on your structure. For me, the best pec exercises were a low decline press, low incline, not extreme angles, and dumbbell flies. So those were the best exercises for me. For some people, flat bench press works very well, but for myself, it was putting a lot of strain on my front deltoids and pec tendons, and I didn't think it was very efficient for the pecs. So you have to experiment. It depends on your structure, which exercises are going to work for you. But definitely you need to do some compound exercise, so a multi-joint exercise pressing movement, which I prefer to use barbells for that, or machines, and then some isolation exercise, for instance, dumbbell fly or cable crossover, where you're working around one joint, and my preference there is to use dumbbells for dumbbell flies. So those were the exercises that worked for me the best. But again, you need to experiment a little bit with the exercises, and any body part that's weak or lagging behind, the answer is not to train it more frequently or do more exercises or more sets or more reps. It's to do with more focus. So do it first in your workout rather than later on, and use techniques to increase the intensity of the workout. So slow down the negatives. If you've got a training partner that can help you with 1 or 2 forced reps at the end, that's also good. If you do an exercise on a machine, when you reach failure on the positive, you can get somebody to lift it into the end position and lower it down again for a couple of more negatives. And then you've got stronger body parts. In order to keep balance, you don't use so much intensity on those body parts. Maybe you just go to the point of failure and you don't go beyond that. So that's what I would recommend if your pecs or any other body part are lagging behind. You need to put emphasis on them. Yeah, again, biceps were a weak point for me. It's probably my weakest body part genetically. So I had to experiment a little bit and find what worked for me. Originally, I was doing heavy barbell curls, heavy dumbbell curls, because that's what most people were doing. And my forearms were growing great, my shoulders were growing, but my biceps were kind of lagging. They were never a strong body part for me, but I definitely was able to improve them by doing a very isolated exercise first. So for instance, a concentration curl with a dumbbell, a curl with a cable, or a curl with a machine that really isolated the biceps. Again, controlling the negative, holding the peak contraction, perhaps extra negatives if possible, if it's a machine that it's safe. And afterwards, using a barbell curl or dumbbell curl where there might be a little bit more body movement. And again, not overtraining, not doing more days necessarily, or a lot of people, because the biceps are showy muscle, they tend to do more exercises or train it more frequently, and that's not the answer. The answer is to train with intensity, with focus, and allow enough recovery time. And with triceps, I mean, biceps is a small muscle. They supinate the wrist and bend the arm. So you don't need a lot of different exercises. 2 exercises for biceps will be fine. Triceps, 2 or 3 exercises. One with the arms by the side, so obviously tricep push down is the obvious exercise there. But you also need some with the arm overhead, where the tricep is stretched in order to activate the long head. So you need at least two exercises for triceps as well. One with the arms by the side and one with overhead, with the dumbbell, with the barbell, with the cable. It doesn't really matter what your preference is, but you definitely need to do in 2 positions. And don't forget, triceps are involved whenever you're pushing. You're doing chest, you're doing shoulders, and biceps are involved in doing back. So once a week or once every 6 days, or however your body's recovering, is enough for biceps and triceps. Don't get carried away. Doing more and more is not the answer. Okay, well, I think it's a big myth in bodybuilding, in the gym world, that you need to constantly change your routine. Most of the exercises that I used to become British champion, to become professional, to become Mr. Olympia, didn't really change that much through my whole career of 12 years. What's changed a little was the routine, how often I was training in the gym, taking note how much recovery time I needed, and as I got bigger and stronger, actually needed more recovery time. So that was the biggest change. The actual exercises don't need to be changed that much unless there's a reason this exercise is not working for you anymore. You have an injury and it's something you need to avoid. And it's something I think a lot of trainers do. Oh, you need to change your routine every month or every 2 months or so on, just to make the client or the customer feel satisfied that they're getting something new. With bodybuilding, it's not exactly the case. If you have exercises that work for you, they work for your structure. For instance, my back training routine was pretty much all the time starting with pullovers, followed with some pull downs, and maybe 2 rowing exercises, which may have changed from time to time, but generally it was heavy barbell rows or dumbbell rows and cable rows. So that was my back routine. If you look at whoever, Lee Haney, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Ronnie Coleman, you will see that they pretty much do the same routine. They found the exercises that work for them. You need to vary the intensity sometimes. You can't train all out 100% all the time, so that's something that needs to vary. I found that if you're training HIIT, which I recommend is the most effective way to train, you can probably train like that, where you're pushing and you're trying to achieve more each and every workout for maybe 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks, absolutely maximum. And then I recommend going to a lighter training routine for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, kind of an active recovery. So that's how I would change the routines. And just taking note, if you need more recovery time, maybe train a little bit less frequently. But the actual exercises that work are the exercises that work. Same if you take, for instance, my leg routine. For many, many years, it was leg extensions, followed by leg press and hack squats. That was my quad routine. And so there's no need to necessarily change the exercises or the order of the exercises all the time. And if you do that, it makes it very hard to track progress as well. Because how do you know if you're progressing or not if you're constantly changing things around? So yes, you should vary the routine in terms of the intensity of the workout. Sometimes you need to cycle down to less intensity, more active recovery, not training all out, not training to failure for a short period of time. Or sometimes also taking a whole week off from training is great for general recovery. But no need to change the exercises or all the other exercises constantly all the time. That's a big myth and a mistake that people make.